Hi, thank you for joining us today. We think it is so important for people to learn and know more about plant-based nutrition. We don't want to always just listen to someone on a channel or something and then just dive right in. For me specifically, I like to know why. Why should I eat this way? What's so important about this? Before I do it. I've even had doctors tell me you need to take this supplement or pill or something. And I'm always like, why? I'm not going to take it until I know why. And so hopefully we can encourage those of you that are listening to do that as well. So today I want to talk about how you can find out more about where you can learn about plant-based nutrition, like where we have learned more. I know for me, both of us, we've studied nutrition at the master's level, and we learned, conventional methods. We learned that eating vegan can be actually dangerous, that you have to do food combining and things like that. For me, that was almost 30 years ago where I learned this. And since then, we've learned that you really don't have to food combine. We recycle amino acids. You don't have to worry about combining certain foods. It can be very safe and actually beneficial to eat a vegan diet, but it can't be a junk food vegan diet. It does need to be whole food, plant-based with a large variety. So where are we learning this information, and where can our listeners learn more as well? So how are you, Daniel?
I'm doing, excuse me. I have a frog in my throat this morning, but I'm doing great. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm fine. I'm excited that we're talking about this. For those of you listening, we didn't even plan on talking about this, but we started sharing some names and things that we didn't even know about. And so we're really excited about sharing this with all of you today. So who are some of your favorite teachers of nutrition?
Well, the first guy I came across that took me on this journey was Dr. Caldwell Essystein, and of course our teacher, Dr. Christopher. But I saw Essystein on the movie. What was it? Forks Over Knives.
Oh, yeah.
And wow, I was amazed at what this guy was talking about reversing heart disease. So, and of course, he led me to many other, doctors and teachers. What was one of your most biggest impacts? What person was for you?
Mm, I don't know who started it for me. I know. Okay, so if I back up, so even though I knew could be dangerous to eat a vegan diet, I also knew through my studies that we really didn't need as much protein, quote unquote. I hate using the word protein, as I thought, because it's just the amount that's in a small can of tuna would meet all of your needs for the day. And so I knew that I wanted to figure out how to eat where that's all I'm eating, that much meat, because I also knew when you eat more than that, it puts a strain on the kidneys and it increases cholesterol and it starts to affect your heart. So how do I cut back? Because I was eating meat 3 times a day. And so I personally, just from that, tried to cut back, where we're not eating as much meat, but I wasn't thinking about dairy. But then trying to remember what I watched first. I know Forks Over Knives was a big one for me. What the Health, Food Inc. There's so many.
Game Changers,
Yes. I'm trying to think back even before
even
those.
before all those.
Yes. So what I would do is that when I was listening, like Super Size Me, I remember that. Oh my gosh, that was probably 20 years ago or almost. When I would watch those documentaries, I would look up the speakers. So whoever presented that day. So like watching Forks Over Knives, there probably was Collin Campbell was probably on there, and Dr. Essystein was probably on there. And so I Googled them and then started listening to them on their YouTubes, on YouTube or podcasts or wherever I could find them. And then the Food Revolution Summit, which just ended recently, I would listen to that. And then when I heard speakers, I'd go, oh, I want to hear more about what that speaker said. And so I would look them up, and then I would look up their books, and then I would start reading their books. And so then when I went to the School of Natural Healing, and Dr. Christopher talked so much about the mucusless diet, he didn't have any animal proteins. Then, though, his older books do have a lot of dairy. I'm thinking they had dairy before it started pasteurization. And then Dr. Schulz,
Yeah.
also a lot about not, especially, he said the number one thing, if you could only eliminate one thing, it would be dairy. And I was like, oh, because I was trying to eliminate meat and I wasn't even thinking about dairy. So I remember that too. So then I would just research the people I had listened to and pull them up. And so Dr. Gregor, that was probably 2017. Maybe I started listening to him, and Brenda Davis. She's one of my favorites. I love listening to her. I love her books. I remember reading How Not to Die, which is Dr. Gregor's. And that, when I read that, looking at the science behind the meat, I was like, okay, I've got to make this happen. And so then that's when I really started diving into how to make it happen. But he had so much science in there. And Brenda Davis, so much science. And so, like I said, I like to know why. And so I immediately started reading her books. They're like How to Become Vegan, How to Become Raw Vegan, How to Become Vegetarian. She has all of these books. So I would just listen to her on different YouTube channels. And then I would also read her books. And that's where I got a lot of my information. Her books are really written like nutrition textbooks. So who would you recommend if someone came to you right now and said, I want to know more about plant-based nutrition?
Oh, I probably recommend Dr. Essystein and Dr. Furhman. Dr. Furhman's pretty sharp. I mean, you've heard we used one of his books at school, you remember?
Yes, I didn't even think about him because I read his books before all of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
nutritarian diet. That's what his is.
Yes.
Of course, I like McDougall. I like Dr. John McDougall. I like Dr. Neil Bernard. Yeah, those four. And of course, Dr. Christopher, I mean, and Schultz. But yeah, so it's hard for me to say just one apparently, but all those are great. So
I think for me, if someone were to come to me and say, where should I start? I think now that you said Dr. Furman, I think he's probably the best starting point. I remember reading his books, Eat to Live. He has a
yeah.
couple, Eat to something. And his books still had some animal products. So then I was like, oh, so maybe you can still have some animal products. I don't think he has any dairy. And it was mostly about low glycemic foods, which I had learned a lot about from Dr. Andrew Weil, and wanted to know more about that too. And so I think Dr. Furman is probably a really great first step. And then I did participate in the two nutritarian diet studies. I don't even know if you knew that those
Oh,
existed.
wow.
So back in, I don't know, maybe 2015, maybe they had the first study, and it was looking at plant-based diets and breast cancer risk. And so you answered all sorts of questions and you reported what you were eating, and it went on for a couple of years, but unfortunately ran out of funding. And then they did it again last year, 1 or 2 years ago. And so I just did it again, where you record how long you've been eating this way. And you take a test too. They send you a test where you do like blood test and salivary test and mail it off. And I'm supposed to get the results actually any day now on that, where they're just analyzing. So people who've been eating a nutritarian way for 5 or more years, what are their health risks, and how do they score on these different tests?
Wow, I didn't know you were doing that's very interesting.
Yeah, I love doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and learning more about it too. So I wanted to tell you, because before we got on the call, for those of you listening, I was talking about Brenda Davis because I'm reading her new book. By the time the podcast comes out, I don't know how, it'll be a couple of months old, but it's Plant Powered Protein, I think is the name. It's her new book. And I love it. And I love all of Brenda Davis's books because they're written like nutrition textbooks. Lots and lots of information, really great information. And when I first started learning about her, she talked about plant-based diets. She went to an island. Oh, I can't remember the name of the island. But it was one that the US used as a base when they did a lot of launches and testing. And this island used to live off of their crops and fishing and things like that. And so they were very healthy. They were very healthy, long living community. And then the US kind of took over the island, the military did. And then to pay them back, they provided foods. And so as you can imagine, the foods replaced their crops and their fishing. And so when Brenda went to visit this island, that she went because they had one of the highest rates of diabetes. And she said children were walking around with these packets eating this food. And she was like, what is this? And it was Kool-Aid mixed with ramen noodles. That was their favorite snack.
Oh
And
my
so that's
God.
what the kids were eating. And the community didn't even want to talk to any outsiders who were coming to help them. They were afraid of doctors because whenever someone went in to see the doctor, they ended up having their leg amputated. It's because they had such severe diabetes, but had gangrene in their legs. And so it was trying to, number one, teach the people, we're not here to cut off your legs. We want to help educate you, to help you start, farming again, start fishing again, letting go of the sodas. And, here in the States, we subsidize all these corn products. And so those are the foods that we are giving to these countries to pay them back. So we're giving them these things that I wouldn't feed my children, even though plenty of people around here do. Anyway, after they worked with them, they did, start gaining their trust and helping them start farming again and improving their diabetes. But that's what she went there to help with, was to help with diabetes. So she was talking about, junk foods and plant foods, the differences there. But I just love hearing all about that. And then she talked a lot about Dr. Collin Campbell and his work in the China study. And I have read that book as well. That is a very, very thick book, but for someone who wants to know more about protein and plant-based protein, that's an excellent book. How familiar are you with his story? Dr. Campbell's story?
Somewhat, but
So he was raised on a farm. His family always had animals and dairy. And so he went to study different populations. He was looking at children who were eating peanut butter. The poorer they were, the more peanut butter they ate. I don't want to say richer, but the more money they had, the more affluence, the more animal products they had. And the children who had the peanut butter were thriving better than the children in the animal food. So he started studying these different populations in China, these indigenous areas, looking to see what they were eating, how they were eating, and measuring their health, and circling different areas to see how they were doing. And it ended up that the people eating plant-based protein were so much healthier and longer living and had less health consequences. And so due to his study, he, who was very, animal protein, we have to give these people animal protein, became vegan, whole food, plant-based. And now he even has a school. His son is with him too. His son is a doctor, and his son also runs they do a lot of outreach. Like I had a little podcast, I can't remember what the name is. It's not a podcast. They call it pods, where you meet with people to help them transition into whole food, plant-based. They do a lot of that, but their website's nutritionstudies.org. And that's a great resource. Lots of recipes. They do very little oils and things like that. And so it's a really great source for recipes. So I really like him, and I really like, so I think I shouldn't list favorites, but I think Brenda Davis and Joel Furhman are probably my favorites. But I do like Collin Campbell. I love Dr. Essystein, and I love his wife and daughter's YouTube channel. They do a lot of plant-based recipes. They're a lot of fun to watch. Some really great recipes on there. Dr. Will Bolkowitz, I don't know if I can say, I'm sorry, Dr. B. He has the books Fiber Fueled and Fiber Fueled the Cookbook. Fiber Fueled was excellent. Fiber Fueled, the cookbook, even better. And so it has a lot of information in there. So it's a lot of information. They both have lots of recipes. They're both great for someone who wants to transition to plant-based. Dr. B was a meat eater. He is a gastroenterologist who was in private practice. He was helping his clients, but he realized he wasn't helping them get better. So he was just treating clients. And so he started learning about plant-based nutrition and realized that is how you get better. That's how you heal yourself. That's how you keep your weight down and things like that. So he wrote these books. He quit his practice, and now he is more like I don't know what he does. I don't know if he just presents and shares information. I know he's the director of some projects and things like that, but he's really promoting a plant-based diet. I really like him. And Dr. Christy Funk. Are you familiar with Dr. Christy Funk?
No.
So she is a celebrity breast cancer doctor. I believe that she is the one who did the surgery for Angelina Jolie and Christina Applegate. And so she says if she had known then what she knows now, she may not have done that. Because she was writing a book. Her book is Breast, the Owner's Manual. She was writing her book, doing the research for the book. She has triplets. I don't remember how old they are now. I think they might be in their teens now, but they were younger. And she had just given them turkey roll-ups, like deli meat with cheese, rolled them all up and gave them to them as a snack to go out and work on her research. And while she's reading her research, she's going, oh my gosh, we shouldn't be eating meat. We shouldn't be eating dairy. And she ran down and called her kids into the kitchen and told them, we don't eat this anymore, and threw everything away that was in the refrigerator and went completely whole food plant-based. And so she has a really great book on the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet and how detrimental dairy, especially, and meat are as far as hormonal health goes. So she is a lot of fun. She is great to listen to. If you can find any interviews with her, she's great. She also has a website. I'll see if I can remember the name of it, but it's really great. It's for people who have breast cancer. They can actually go on and find people who have the same exact stage and grade and type of breast cancer. And so it's like a support group of people who are in the same exact situation you're in. It's really great. Lots of resources, lots of recipes and things like that. She does a couple of in-person conferences too. I really like her.
Sounds very interesting. I've never heard of her, but I'm glad I'm glad I do now, because that's pretty impressive. I think the things we teach about now.
Mm-hmm.
If there's these doctors teaching this, there is a lot of scientific evidence, or they wouldn't be teaching it. So
exactly, especially if they're doing their own research, writing
yeah,
their own book. And for someone, she's a celebrity doctor too, out there to suddenly just change like that too, just based on the research that she's been reading.
yeah, it's powerful information. I mean, it just proves that humans are made to live on plant foods. It's just, well, it's really a fact now. So these are a lot of great resources for people to read through, because when we first started, I didn't know what to eat,
Exactly. So for someone who is concerned about heart health, cardiovascular conditions, maybe high cholesterol, which can be heart related or not even heart related, high blood pressure, AFib, any of those. Some really great doctors are Dr. Joel Kahn, Dr. Dean Ornish. That's Dr. Gregor, that's how he started. His grandmother went to Dr. Pritikin in Ornish, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Essystein. They are all really great doctors for cardiovascular. Who else do you have to add to that? Or do you have information to share about them?
Dr. McDougall's a good one too, about heart health and diabetes. No, I mean, the only information I have to share about Essystein is probably common knowledge about how he has studies. His latest study had 200 participants, and they all had different stages of heart disease. Some were in advanced stages, and the ones who stuck to the diet, 99% of the participants, I think it was 99%, did not have any more cardiac events. This is amazing because you can go
Yes.
through, if you go through the typical drugs and surgery and you keep eating the same Western diet, odds are you're going to have another heart attack, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And he
But
said
with
the
this
ones,
diet, you don't. Huh? Go ahead,
he
Jennifer.
said the ones that dropped out and the ones who didn't participate did end up
Yeah,
having events. Yeah.
it's amazing. It's great because I mean, heart disease is still, is either number one or number two now as the biggest killer.
It's usually number one. Mhm.
But now we know that you can do a lot to prevent this, you know? So, and
Yes.
if you're worried, like me and Jefferson, if you're worried that the food's going to taste like cardboard, it's not true. It's so
No.
good, you know?
Yes. I had a delicious chia pudding parfait for breakfast. It was phenomenal.
Oh, yes. Her food, she posts on Facebook, her food looks amazing. It's
Well,
always
thank you.
colorful, has a lot of variety, and it's a really great resource. I mean,
Well, thank you.
oh,
Yes, and for other people who want to know the why and the science, for me, I found Dr. Rita Marie Lascalzo. You can look her up. Just Google Dr. Rita Marie. I actually am just finishing up my internship with her, but she's an excellent, excellent resource. I know when I was trying to find more ways to eat whole food plant-based is when I discovered her. She used to have a Facebook Live she would do like once a month, I think, where she would be in her kitchen doing food demos on how to make different foods. And so all of her, she is a raw vegan. She is still whole food plant based, but I learned so many different things watching her as well. And then she is deep into the science, you know, the why and how food affects all of your hormones. She owns the Institute for Nutritional Endocrinology. And so I found her because I was going to an endocrinologist for my thyroid condition. And so I was like, okay, how I know nutrition has to be related to endocrinology somewhere. And so that's how I really discovered her. I was trying to find ways to prepare foods and how to learn more about hormones and nutrition.
it's amazing, amazing. And it's just, food is our best medicine. I don't think there's any doubt anymore. I mean, if you study like me and Jennifer have, and these resources we're giving you today, if you want to know for yourself, just read some of these books and you'll be convinced because I mean, it's right in your face. I mean, it's just, it's a fact now, scientific fact. So if you have any doubt, and I see a lot of people still that bash people who eat plant-based diets saying that they're not healthy or you can't build muscle or you're a wimp it's ridiculous, you know. They're trolls, as we so to speak. So,
Yes,
you know,
yes. Hmm. As studies have shown that when you compare athletes, I just read this morning, athletes who use soy protein to build versus those who use whey protein to build muscle, it's the same. They gain the same amount of lean body mass and strength on both. Now, soy is controversial. I personally do like soy, and that was another topic we have talked about. Go back to one of our earlier episodes to learn more about the controversy on soy. But if you can't do soy, then there's always other legumes and seeds as well. But the point is, it doesn't have to be an animal product
no.
or bones, bones, not for bones either, but for muscle strength, especially for bodybuilders. You can use plants and still get the strength and gains that you want.
So if that's holding you back, if you're a guy out there and you think, I would like to have a healthier life and, you know, less chance of developing some cancer. But if you're afraid you're going to turn into some skinny wimp, I mean, come on now, you won't. I've been eating like this for 10 years. I mean, this is what I get for being a man in this business. Like, well, I mean, you're going to be skinny and weak, dude. No, if you, it's about getting proper nutrition through plant. If you get your calories and you're, you know, a variety, like Jennifer teaches a lot, a variety of plant foods, you have nothing to worry about. And you can greatly prevent your risk of developing heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancers, arthritis, autoimmune problems. We could keep going with this list. I mean, that's what you will gain. So,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. And How Not to Die is a really great book too. I haven't read his newer books, but Dr. Gregor's How Not to Die,
oh
loads of
yes.
information. And so that's what triggered that was he always says, you know, if the diet that can reverse heart disease can also reverse diabetes, can also reverse dementia, then why isn't that the diet that we're all following? It's not a diet for this, a different diet for that. This one diet can do it all. I don't like to use the word diet because that has its own little
Yeah.
triggers there, but eating a whole, complete whole food, plant-based all the time, you're going to be strong and healthy. You can reverse all these conditions. Is it a cure-all? No. Your mind has a lot to do with that. Your activity has a lot to do with that as well, which we talk about in other episodes as well. So it's not a cure-all, but it can definitely help.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think that was a very good, comprehensive
Yes.
coverage there. So thank you for joining us today. If you have other resources that you would like to hear about or would like for us to learn about, please share. We love to hear from you. We love to get any kind of comments. We want to know what we can do to help serve you better. So thank you.